they showed GTA, Robot Chicken, Phineas and Ferb, Randy Cunningham, Star Wars Detours, and even epic rap battles of history footage in this, but not Spaceballs. What a terrible episode. Anyways, Darth Vader vs. Obito came out I don't know when I'm getting this out, so it came out some time ago, and this was the 10A-Day episode, his most wanted, and I heard he's really happy with it. So, let's see how my thoughts hold on to it. Again, this review is probably going to be rushed like the last one. I'll try to take a bit more time on it, but no promises. Just like last time, I've had a very busy 2 weeks, so let's just get right into it, shall we? Before we start though, make sure you check out Capsirus's video because I definitely didn't forget to write that part in the script. I'll have it linked in the description. Anyways, let's get to it. I really liked both analyses. Like, a lot. Vader's isn't perfect, I'll admit. Sure, I can definitely understand why they went with name-dropping Vader before Anakin, but I personally feel like it would have held more impact and weight if they kept the name drop till after his backstory. But again, I can see why they did it that way. Another thing I noticed is how they just talk about random things without any sort of transition, like randomly getting into a speed feat while talking about the Force, and at the end where there's barely a lead up to his redemption. Hell, right before that they talked about how he survived a planet exploding, so that was kind of a random thing to jump to. Still though, I really enjoyed his rundown. Vader needed an updated analysis, and I think the one we got did the job really well. It was also cool to see them talk about some new stuff. Although it is kind of weird they didn't bring some of the more impressive stuff he's done. We'll get to that in a little bit. Pretty solid all around. Obito's analysis, however, was really, really good. They were able to talk about both his story and abilities very well, and it flows very naturally. And it's also pretty funny too, I'm not gonna lie. Don't have much to comment on. It's overall just a very good rundown of Obito. That's pretty much all there is to it. Oh, and both cutaways exist, they're both okay. Anyways, I like the analyses quite a bit. I thought they were really enjoyable, and yeah. Now, on to the fight. And just to get negatives out of the way, as I do most of the time, the models still look kind of off to me. Vader's looks fine, but Obito's clashes so hard with it, and the background still feels kind of dull, but I guess that makes sense for a match like this. And, well, I can't really think of any more major negatives, honestly. I mean, I guess that Obito's right sleeve disappears out of nowhere, but I mean, who cares about that, I guess? Huh. Let's just get into the fight run through. We have a setup that isn't really much to write home about. It's just 3 lines and then boom, fighting time. It doesn't really bother me personally, like I see it bothering others though. These two don't need that big of a reason to fight. Also, the quick setup just allows us to see more of them going at it, so that's a plus. And the 3 lines they say for the dialogue exchange are just so raw, especially for Obito. Guess now would be a good time to mention the voice actors on that note. Jason Marnocha does incredible as Vader. Not only does the voice just sound really rad, but he nails the total monotone feeling in his voice. He never screams really loud or speaks to himself in determination. He stares at the dangers Obito puts in front of his face with cold, blank apathy. And that's exactly what I wanted out of him. Obito, on the other hand, brings back Nicholas Andrew Louis to voice another Uchiha, having previously voiced Madara. And yeah, that makes sense, Obito has the Madara voice jutsu after all. And of course, just like he did with Madara, he did a really good job. And I mean that with Obito's regular voice in mind too. It gets his little outbursts and calm moments down pretty good, and I like how he is able to show a wider array of emotion given how he's more human than Vader. Nice little detail there. There's a slow and sorta stiff hand fight at the beginning. I don't really know what else to call it, before Vader stabs Obito with his lightsaber. Except not really, cause he just phases into the ground. Again, I heard some don't like this sequence, but personally I think it fits pretty well. It allows us to see the intimidation factor Vader has just by standing there, kind of referring to the fact that they called him a space slasher villain. No, not that one. He's still a human, but not. Slow and stiff and janky. And of course with his iconic breathing to boot. While Obito, even though I heard him attacking first is kind of out of character, I mean I don't really mind since I don't know him that well, but it allows him to see that Vader isn't someone who is messing around, who was really being serious when he threatened him. And even though people say the stab has no blood, the bandana is unaffected, and the sliding into the ground looks kinda off, I gotta say, I think that was the point. Obito is supposed to feel unnatural and uncanny. As the viewer, you feel that something is just off. And I just feel like that's the vibe they were going for with him when he has the mask on. Of course his demeanor and such changes when the mask breaks and we get to see his face, but yeah. You know, that's just what the point of the mask is. The fight that they showed in the preview looks a bit slow, but like I said, we're in the early stages of this fight. Let them be the sedate menaces that they are. And this allows for some really badass moments. And that's another thing I really wanted them to do. Mainly for Vader. Just give them cool moments and stuff that makes them look, as Vader says, impressive. That was one of the main problems I had with Vader vs. Doom, as Darth Vader didn't really feel like Darth Vader there. He felt like a fast-paced comic book villain, so I'm glad we get the complete opposite here. Like with him walking the Imperial March with pride and calmly blocking the kunai, him pulling Obito towards him and coolly gripping the mask with force to smash it in his hands, him using 2- to redirect the giant 10-tail super nuke, and when he just stares with an angered expression when the mask comes off, not saying a word. I'm very satisfied with his portrayal. Anyways, like I said, the beginning scuffle is still really fun, but it's when Padme shows up in Obito's illusion when things really start ramping up. This is the only time Vader has any sort of slight reaction or pullback to anything, and I'm glad it was this of all moments. I also like how Vader just snaps out of it quickly and gets right back into it by crushing Obito's eye in order to escape the illusion. There's the small beatdown, Vader loses an eye patch, Vader is actually able to catch Obito off guard and get a successful stab on him, and the two's powers counter each other and send the other back. Obito comments on how Vader lost his humanity just like him, and that allows for a nice little exchange. And it also allows for Obito to have an understanding of Anakin, something that affects the ending of the fight. Obito summons the Ten Tails in one of, if not the most amazing sequence of the fight. Just the Ten Tails screaming while preparing its blast while Vader stares dead on at it, the way it leads into the God Tree in Ten Tails form, and the music feeling so orchestral. That's No Moon is a track I was skeptical of when I heard it in the preview, but now I wouldn't have it any other way. It feels so grand. You can hear both elements of Star Wars and the Uchiha leitmotif. It feels so cinematic, intense, yet calm at the same time. It's a very atmospheric track, and of course the Brandon ad was based yet again. I don't have much to note on for this next part. It's mostly just Obito flying around and the two throwing whatever they can at the other. I love the choreography and the shots. The God Tree makes the setting a lot more interesting. It increases the tension a lot. Vader loses an arm, his lightsaber, and his mask, all things that a normal person would be distraught about. But not Vader. He doesn't care. He's only intent on finishing the job. Only now he doesn't want to hold back anymore. Another detail I noticed was how they were able to show the progression of the fight with Vader here. Here he starts how you would expect, gradually losing more and more parts, all before his mask is completely lost and his breathing turns raspy instead of dignified. With a really impactful force push, he uses his TIE fighter that he ascended down on initially to blast Obito with all of its got, now ready to take him out for good. Unfortunately, Vader pulls a Black Adam when he finds out that Obito successfully performed the Infinite Tsukuyomi, and succumbs to its illusion. We zoom into his eyes, which we see being overtaken by its gaze as it fades to white, and we transition to Anakin. No robotic limbs or dark force tendencies, just Anakin. And standing right in front of him is Padme, his perfect dream. This is the only time we see Vader show any emotion in this fight, and it's not even as Vader. Sure, he had a reaction to seeing Padme the first time, but he was still able to get back in the game very quickly. Here though, this is the one trick that Obito does that Vader can't counter or escape. Even in this perfect reality for Vader, there's still that sense of eeriness with Obito's voice coming out of Padme's mouth. And then and there, Obito wishes Vader the best in the next life and swats him like a fly. So yeah, Obito actually took this one. Do I personally think that Vader should have taken it? Yeah. Do I care? No, not really, because this animation was still awesome. And plus, I love it when post-analyses are able to tell me why someone I wasn't expecting to win won, and when it's not just about stats, rather how their abilities countered each other. I'm fine with Obito taking it. Though it is still sad that Vader has to go on a 2-0 losing streak. Now, what did I think of the episode as a whole? Well, if you haven't figured it out already, it's my new favorite of the season. I still think that Chosenborn is the overall better episode, but I just personally like this one a bit more. Though I still like Obi-Wan vs. Kakashi though, and I'm not sure if I prefer it to Madara vs. Aizen. I'll have to think about that one. It's not free of its flaws, I mean no episode is, but none of the problems really grind my gears at all, so it could have been much worse. I'd give this about a high 8, low 9 around there, I'd say. I really thought it lived up to the hype. And next time, we got the bird battle that was so big, it made Elon change the Twitter logo. Phoenix vs. Raven is certainly a matchup. Origin did say it turned out really good though, so I'm pretty optimistic about it. Actually, the preview just came out when I'm recording this, and it honestly looks really good, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm pretty optimistic about it. And it's not like the matchup is bad or anything. It does have plenty of connections, and also I heard it's actually pretty fair. And plus, it's gonna be good to see Raven get an episode that isn't Raven vs. Twilight, and Phoenix had to get an episode at some point. So I'm pretty hyped for this one. Just not really for the matchup itself. Anyways, there you go. I had fun writing this one. I mean, I do for most of the scripts I make, but still. It was just a fun one to write. I'll see you all for the Phoenix vs. Raven review, where hopefully I won't be so stacked, and the premiere of Stick 'em Up, which we haven't made any progress on planning at all since I made that video last week.